Good evening, everyone. This is Maruti Kashyap, Director BB Group, and welcome to the program SCALP, the Saviors of Knowledge, Achievement and Leadership Program. Today, the topic is cyber crimes, cyber risks, and all its applicable laws and available solutions in the market. So that is the topic for the day. And we have wonderful veterans with us who has seen the real-time risks of the cyber security and who has really played a wonderful role in all these cyber risk areas. Let me introduce you one by one. We have Sri N.R. Vasan sir with us. Vasan sir is ex DGP for RPB area and NIA, and he has also worked for CBI as a joint director, and he was very instrumental in and he handled the case of Harshad Mehta bank scam, Indian bank scam, and several other cyber scams. Good evening, sir. We welcome you to the panel.
Thank you. Good evening.
And we have Sri J.V. Ramurthy garu. So Ramurthy is a senior advisor to HCL right now, and he has worked as a former COO and president for HCL Systems, and he was also ex HAL, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and a veteran who has seen a complete gamut of cyber evolution. Good evening, sir. We welcome you to the panel.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
We have Sri J.A. Chowdhury, who is chairman for a blockchain committee of India and IT advisor Tamil Nadu government, and he has also worked for a complete IT evolution of Andhra Pradesh, especially Hyderabad area. Good evening, sir. We welcome you.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for opportunity. Good evening.
We have Sri Venkatesh Murthy, who is Data Security Council of India's director, and he has done excellent work in the area of data security and cyber risks. He is very instrumental in the area of cyber risks and its related problems, and he has trained so many IPS officers and police officers on investigation, and he has spent a lot of time in the area of cyber crime investigations, and he is also one of the alumni of IVLP program of US Department of State on the topic of linking digital policy to cybercrime law enforcement. Good evening, Venkatesh Murthy ji. We welcome you to the panel.
Good evening. Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let me start with a basic question. I would like to start with Sri Vasanji. Vasanji, can you just give us an idea how big risk this cyber risk is? We have seen a lot of risks. How big risk is this?
See, after countries have got onto digital bandwagon, especially countries like India, where you have now, penetration of mobile phones, even labor and workers and housemaids and whatnot. And they are all using the digital technology in one way or the other. The risk has become very, very challenging. It is very real. Every day, if you open your newspaper, you read some or the other news of cyber fraud.
Vasanji, your voice is breaking in between.
Okay. Is it clear now?
Yeah, it's better.
It's better, sir.
Because the fan is creating some disturbance. As I was saying, due to digital penetration in countries like India, we are talking in context of India, the cyber crime has become a real challenge. And the more tech savvy we become, and with the COVID, when we are using, work from home, everybody is on Zoom or WebEx or some kind of digital platform which we are using. The cyber attacks have increased. I was just reading the other day in Forbes India, the latest article, they said the cyber attacks have increased by 86% in the last 3 months. That means the after COVID-19 crisis has set in. And this is a tip of iceberg. And every day you come across your own colleagues, people who are educated, who are, whom we call the cream of the society. They are also being cheated because they are not very well with technology. Everybody is using ATM. Everybody is using.
Vasanji, sorry to disturb you. Your audio is breaking. Not able to hear. Do you have any earphones or headphones? Can we try it?
I'll try that. Just give me a second.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'll come back to you. Meanwhile, by the time you connect. Chaudhary ji, can you just tell us what are the main threats in the area of cyber security and cyber risk?
Maruti, as Dr. Vasan has already alluded that we are only seeing the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is still hidden, and we don't know how big is that iceberg as far as the cyber attacks and cyber issues are concerned. And in India, we are not at all actually prepared for this kind of a digital revolution without securing our house. Our house is not properly secure. In fact, when I was the IT advisor to Andhra Pradesh government, that time the Visakhapatnam was one of the 100 smart cities. Then I was telling we don't require smartness now. First of all, let's create secure infrastructure. Security, safety is more important than the smartness. So we came out with a triple S strategy: safety, security, then only you talk about smartness. But unfortunately in India, we're only pushing everybody to go smart, to go digital, to go this thing, without even telling what are the risks involved, what are the issues. This thing, if cyber attack happens to a common man, who is going to really help him? We don't have law and order machinery who understands these cases properly at the village level or mandal level. Now we are making all the payment digital. Jan Dhan program, every farmer, every unbanked people, they all got bank account. They are all happily transacting using mobile accounts and all that, this thing without knowing. In fact, somebody was telling recently, a lot of corona messages goes to the people that if you press that link, then automatically is complete, the mobile is under their control. They can use that mobile number, talk to the bankers and get all the sensitive information, and his money can be taken up within no time. But these things are not really, told to the common man anywhere. The media is also not playing its role. In fact, the print media, electronic media, Government of India should have enough budget for bringing this massive awareness. That's not happening. And we are just, we are keeping all our doors, windows, everything open. Come and loot us. Then we are ready. Take this money, take this sensitive information. We don't have any mechanism. I think it's a high time, as Vasan was mentioning, we are not even tip of the iceberg. We have information about how ransomware attacks are happening, and individuals, many people, attacks are happening. They are not disclosing because they think that by disclosing, somebody may have a status issue or other issues. This thing, they are not disclosed. They are not even going and telling the police that something has happened. So I think there's a time has come for India, before we talk about digital India, before digital India becomes disaster India because we are not properly secure. I think we have to give utmost importance to security, then only introduce the digital this thing. Otherwise, all common people, innocent people, they don't know. They don't know any of this thing. Even educated people in the cities, they don't know 90% of the cyber related risks. 90% of the urban people, they also don't know. They're simply, in big companies, technology companies are being hacked today. Lay about non-technology this thing. So today we are in that kind of a dark period, and we are still pushing everything digital, go digital, and COVID is pushing more digital without even like COVID messages coming whenever we call somebody. COVID messages are coming like that. I wish the cyber security messages should appear whenever somebody is trying to take care of this. These are do's and don'ts. Don't unnecessarily press those links. These messages also should continuously, at least for the next six months, more than the COVID messages. Now COVID messages people have understood. Now cyber security messages should be known, not only the urban people, even for the rural people. Whenever any call goes, I mean, that kind of measures are required at this point of time, Maruti.
Thank you. Venkatesh Murthy, I have one linkage questions with you on this particular activity. COVID-19, like Vasanji said, we are seeing 86% of rise in the cases. It's highly alarming. And what is the new modus operandi of the criminals who are behind this high rise of the cases? And what is the counter from the police department for the cyber crimes?
Yeah. So it is a very well-established fact that the criminals always try to take maximum benefit during any disaster or any emergency situation. I still remember the malicious links being circulated with the headline "Debris of Malaysian Flight 370 found." Those days, people were very curious, and I myself have witnessed at least 7-8 links on several social media platforms. And people are really attracted to view it. They're very curious to know what happened to that flight. And finally, when they click that message, they will get a alert stating that Flash Player is not compatible, and it asks the user to upgrade it. And finally, when the user clicks on the upgrade, his computer is compromised. So now with this current lockdown imposed on us, everybody is at home. More and more online transactions are taking place. Criminals attack to compromise computers and mobile devices to gain access to users' confidential data, banking details, and also attack the computers with ransomware. So at least 20 people whom I know very well have received an email threatening to make it public. They were accessing some pornographic website. So the email itself had the old password which they were using. So these are some of the tactics used by the criminals. Also, we have seen the Excel files being circulated via email with a very enticing subject line, like a list of coronavirus victims allegedly sent from the World Health Organization or the Department of Health. In fact, the malicious MS Office file contains a Trojan downloader which secretly downloads and also installs another malicious file. Work from home, as the earlier panelist mentioned, it has come as a compulsion to the industry, and it was not very well planned. So criminals try to target the employees working from home by sending some phishing emails with malicious links. People have also started receiving emails, at least a dozen of cases we have seen in the South India, from hotels where they had made some reservations. So they receive some emails stating that with the subject line "refund for your reservation at our hotel," and when the person replies, or when the person asks for the refund, they were asked to scan the QR code. So when it comes to awareness with respect to digital payments, we still lag when it comes to awareness. So the QR code, instead of sending money, it's a request money. So the victim, he will simply scan that QR code and automatically from his account some money is debited. And also COVID-19 related domain registrations. So you can see many domains are registered with the COVID-19 related keyword. Many fake websites projecting to provide some authentic news related to number of deaths is being circulated. But coming straight to your question about the rise in the cyber crimes, while the media report shows that there is a significant increase in the number of crimes in India, for us, the authentic source of information when it comes to crimes related to IT, let it be under IT Act or IPC, is the NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau. So to get the correct picture about all those registered cyber crimes in India, Chapter 18 of the NCRB Crime in India report is final, and we'll have to wait for that report to get details about the number of cases that have got registered across the country. I'm also very curious to know that. This is my take on the number of cyber crimes getting increased in India.
Taking that as a note, Ramurthy ji, can you just give us some idea on how India is prepared for this cyber crime rise? You have been seeing the IT industry from past 40 years. A lot of evolution was there. But
Yes.
parallelly, the same security levels have been built for the systems, because the IT companies, they themselves are facing this risk very badly right now. And let us speak about the non-IT people. That's a very big threat for them. If the IT team itself is not able to handle these kinds of threats, now how can the normal people or non-IT companies can handle this?
See, among all the companies in general, I'm talking as a corporate. IT companies, yes, per se they are able to do it because they have got customers' data with them, and they're responsible for the not to divulge anything because of various types of various types of NDAs, etc., are already in place, legally binding contracts, and it cannot be let out to anybody else. That is one thing. And also, if it is a sensitive project of the other country, they also have their own person who puts all types of restrictions on the entry of the people who are working, and also whether they are security cleared. All those things are already put in place. But what I wanted to cover is those things that's already a part of the SLAs, this service level agreements they have with the customers, and they have to adhere it. Otherwise, the contract is always be either they have to pay the liquidated damages, or they have to pay legal charges, or it can be contract can be cancelled, etc. But what is more important is any type of listed companies themselves have not been very serious about it. What Mr. Chaudhary and Mr. Vasanji is saying, and also what Mr. Venkatesh Murthy is saying, is very, very correct. Only 18% of the companies are totally adhering to this, and many of them accept that it is a very big risk. Among the CEOs, 58% of them agree that the cyber attacks are a big risk, but very few, only what is available funds for them as per the statistics is less than 10% for this type of important risk. And they are saying that this is one of the 5 important risks an organization will face. The CEO thinks that the CIO, Chief Information Officer, is responsible. CIO feels CISO is responsible. Chief Information Security Officer is responsible, etc. But at the end, the threat is not being handled. I think if I can get into a little deeper, there is no, many of the companies, they are still thinking work in progress. Very few people have started, they're thinking what they should do, and by the time they put the action in place, the attack can happen anytime, because it is a little long drawn process of. And also we are thinking only one thing, that hardware has to be upgraded, etc. But hardware has to be upgraded, but along with it, the other types of security operating control rooms have to be created. If they have to do it, it's need not necessary that they should do everything by themselves. In case that they are taking a little longer time, they can always go to a third-party person and agree with them and start working. Many of them don't have cyber policy itself in place. They have not done cyber audit. They don't even know how many, they have not done penetration testing, which are vulnerable points which anybody can hack it or get into this. How many ports are available, how many ports are used, what some of the ports are not at all being used, why they are kept open, this type of thing, including these type of things are not reported by the company for various reasons. Most important point, many big companies are also not talking about it, because everybody wanted to push it underneath the carpet. The reason why they wanted to push it is they are very, very worried about the brand image being taken. Second thing is the name they spoil among them. And third is they also do not know any type of emergency drills, they don't have in place. If an attack happens, what are the things that they should do? Most important thing, I think Mr. Vasan is the right person to say with his enormous experience, the evidence has to be protected. Unless the evidence is protected, then only they know who has done it or not. Most of the time, by time they realize and report it, 2 days, 3 days are over, and then there's nothing left to say anything, who has done it or what has. That is one. And second thing is they have also not done any type of awareness campaign, training. See, employees
Murthy, before going to evidence and awareness campaign, I have one interesting question here and a very important question for Vasanji. Vasanji, are we audible right now? Can you?
Yeah. Is my voice clear now?
Yes, sir. Now your voice is very clear. I have one important question for you. Now, before going to evidence and all those things, most of the companies who have been attacked cyber crime, they are not number one. Number two, even people, if they want to report, they don't know what is the procedure. Number three, what is the jurisdiction? What are the applicable laws? What is the provisions provided by Government of India or any international committees and other things? You have been working on all these cases. Can you just give us some guidance in this regard?
Yeah, this is a very, very challenging area for law enforcement authorities as well as for public who gets affected with any kind of cyber offense. Now, you see, generally, the crime investigation is a state subject. That means the entire jurisdiction is with the particular state in India. If crime has taken place in Andhra Pradesh, it will be jurisdiction of Andhra Pradesh police station to investigate that offense. If it is Karnataka, it will be Karnataka state, which will have the jurisdiction to, investigate that offense. But unfortunately, or fortunately, with the cyber in the cyberspace, there are no boundaries. Not only there are no boundaries within a country, there are no boundaries in the world. Means I can sit in another country and commit an offense in cyberspace, which will affect somebody sitting in India, in a farthest corner of the country, who is using either a laptop which is connected to internet, or he is using a mobile phone which is connected to internet, or he is carrying out any kind of financial transaction, he can be attacked, and he can suffer some that is the problem. And another problem which comes to the public is that when you are cheated or you are affected by an offense, you go to the local police station and you tell them that this is what has happened. So generally the local police will say, no, this, the server is not located in our state, or the company with which you are carrying out the transaction is not located in state. So they refuse to register cases, which is incorrect. But unfortunately, that is a reality. So this is a major challenge. And then the second challenge which comes is, now if server is located outside country, then the evidence more often than not will reside in that country. It is not available within India. So we need to depend on international treaties or mutual legal assistance treaties or various conventions. But unfortunately, we don't have a universally accepted convention. For the information of audience, I can say there is a European convention which is applicable to the countries in European Union, but some other countries like United States and other countries have also joined that convention. But India has not joined that convention because they were insisting that India should change its laws, especially relating to data security. So on that ground, we have yet to join that. So a lack of a universally accepted framework, we find it extremely difficult to gather evidence. And more so, the more, another important thing which I will like to emphasize, more than collecting evidence and investigating a case, prevention is the key thing. Now, prevention, one, as other panelists have told in the beginning, that most of the companies don't spend the amount required on cybersecurity. Most of the companies don't have cybersecurity policies in place. And even if they have, they don't follow it. So much, even in government, you will find if I'm the boss, my password is known to my PS, or my password is known to somebody who's working with me. He comes and opens my email, he downloads, he send email from my account. So that kind of thing. And in prevention, when some offense is taking place, you need a very, very quick information from the country from where the attack is taking place. Unfortunately, due to lack of, as I said, universal convention or universal arrangements, we are not able to get that instant information. That is a major problem.
Like Vasanji said, prevention is better than cure for any, like any other risk. If I, even for cyber risk, this is the prevention is better than cure. What you are saying. If I take that question to Mr. Venkatesh Murthy, now if taking that preventive action, what is the law in position right now? I mean, what laws do we have for this? What is the procedure for this? And prevention from employee side, and prevention from employer side, and prevention from a citizen side, and from various sides of a human being and operation of business. What are the various applicable laws and available sections?
Yeah, when it comes to crimes related to IT, you will be surprised that there is no legal definition for cyber crimes in India. Okay, so we have this Information Technology Act 2000, which was enacted in the year 2000 with the primary objective of providing some legal recognition to e-commerce, which was later amended in the year 2008. So when it comes to laws related to IT related crimes, there is a belief in the country that the cyber crimes are dealt only under Information Technology Act. But for your information, when this Information Technology Act was passed, so there were amendments, significant amendments made to the existing laws, like Indian Penal Code, the Indian Evidence Act, Bankers Book of Evidence Act, all those acts, some amendments were made. So local police handling of cyber crimes, the local police, the jurisdictional police stations, they are empowered to register cases under the Indian Penal Code as well as the Information Technology Act. Because in the year 2008, there was a significant amendment made, even though it came into force from 27th October 2009, the investigating powers which were with the DSP rank officer was brought down to police inspector. So any police station would have a police inspector. So a police inspector can register cases under Information Technology Act as well as the Indian Penal Code. And also recently the central government has started this cybercrime.gov.in. It's an online reporting portal which was initially started to take care of offenses against women and children. But now they have also expanded the scope of the reporting platform where they have provided all sort of crimes related to IT can be registered there. So when it comes to cyber law in India, the Information Technology Act has some very good criminal provisions to deal with hacking, which is unauthorized access to computer resources, the identity theft, phishing. It's like somebody tries to cheat by personation. So that is dealt under 66C and 66D of the Information Technology Act. Violation of privacy. When I say privacy, it's the bodily privacy. Electronic transmission of obscene information. All these obscenity related sections are dealt under section 67, 67A and 67B of Information Technology Act. Even cyber terrorism is also covered under the Information Technology Act, which has a life imprisonment. Okay, so uniqueness about this Information Technology Act is that it provides civil remedies also for the victim. For example, if I am a victim of phishing, I have lost 2 lakh rupees. So now I am not interested with the criminal case. I am not interested to go to police because I don't find any happiness in prosecuting a stranger. It's a human tendency. If the accused person is a known person, I might spend 3 lakh rupees to get him imprisoned or get him punished. So I'm not interested. I'm not really interested in punishing someone who is not known to me. I'm only interested in recovering the damage which has already taken place. So for that, the Information Technology Act provides a civil remedy where the adjudicating authority is created. The state IT secretary acts as the adjudicating officer. He has the quasi-judicial powers. He has the powers to conduct an inquiry and award compensation. So he can award compensation up to 5 crore rupees. So I can go to the state IT secretary and give a complaint with him that I have lost 2 lakh rupees. So the IT secretary would conduct the enquiry and he will check who is at fault. Because in the Information Technology Act, you need to observe that there is something called as safe security practices and due diligence. So as an intermediary, as a service provider, you need to exercise certain safe security practices and also exercise due diligence. So based on that, you will award that compensation. So the IPC, which was amended, say for example, very simple, forgery of document, 466, 467, 468 IPC used to deal with the forgery. So when this IT Act was introduced in the year 2000, so they made changes to the definition of the word document. So the word document would include electronic document also. So forgery of electronic document is already covered under the Indian Penal Code. So whatever cases that were dealt in the past, the conventional traditional forgery cases, now if somebody tries to do a forgery electronically, even those cases are also covered under the Information Technology Act. So in a nutshell, if I want to tell, the Information Technology Act as the criminal provisions where the offenses are very well classified. It also has the civil remedies, and at the same time, in the absence of a data protection law, as of now, we don't have the data protection law. The Information Technology Act itself will provide you some data privacy and data protection under Section 72A of Information Technology Act, which speaks about the penalty for wrongful disclosure of the information in breach of a contract. And for your information, the Information Technology Act also speaks about Section 72, speaks about penalty for breach of confidentiality and privacy. If a police officer who is investigating a criminal case, he has gained access to some electronic records, if he discloses it, if he discloses it to a third party without the consent or knowledge of the person from whom the electronic record was secured, so then the police officer himself would become liable under Section 72 of IT Act. So privacy and data protection to certain extent is available in the Information Technology Act. I'm not telling that it is comprehensive, but something is better than nothing.
Agreed. That may not be 100% comprehensive. That is the reason we are seeing 86% of rise in the cases.
Yeah.
But one point I want to understand here, maybe Murthy-ji, you might be a better person to counter this activity. See, companies write a lot of NDAs with reference to data security, and companies write a lot of agreements with various clients and their employees also. And this data security and any breach of cyber risk or these kinds of things when take place, first thing, how do we quantify the damage? And who is the actual person who has to reimburse this damage? Do we have any insurance in place, like any medical insurance or any other insurance? Do we have any cyber insurance in place?
Yes, we have cyber insurance in place. Now, recently we have caught off, but the problem is the very less people. One and most important, I mean, as you said rightly, that you wanted to know who is the NDAs are all there. But I am more worried about who is doing it. How do you know? Because many of them are taking the laptop to their home, or they are working or leaving it in their desk. Somebody else is seeing it, or it is exposed to anybody else using it, etc. But how do you know that who has done it or not done it? I think this is where the secondary operation, I mean, security operation center has to be put in place, because many times many people use what is not needed for them. Many etiquettes we call, peeping into somebody else's emails, looking into privacy, private mails of somebody. All these type of things are more prevalent, more often used by, I mean, more, it's a bad practice, and more so towards Indians. So this does not, well, Westerners don't like this type of peeping. The second point, most important point is, unless there is the security operating center is put in place and watching, putting a surveillance on who is doing what or who is not supposed to do what, and whether he is accessing mails or what type of levels of accessibility he has been given and what is that he is doing without that, and also easy going into some other banned sites. All these things have to be watched. Second point of it is the whatever it is, whoever it is, etc., the organization has to take the responsibility. Any type of legal or any type of remedial expenses have to be borne by the company. When I'm saying company, the CEO is certainly responsible. And if CFO, if a CIO reports to CFO, naturally CFO is directly accountable. And these type of things are not happening, or not, no, because many of them know these type of things are not reported. Also, the internal the problem is these type of incidents of such serious natures are not brought out to the internal committee, board level appointed internal committee. Generally, board level committee, internal committee is headed by an outsider, especially during that internal audit transactions. He is the chairman and the chairman is just a member. In that time of situation also, there are external auditors and internal auditors. Internal auditors, they give their view, but external auditors are also giving their view. And these type of things, and we have not done any type of, who has done it? Whether it requires any type of disciplinary action, any type of legal recourses have to be taken, or any type of police investigation has to be taken, also have to be seen by the internal audit committee. And also they have to put process correction in such so that it is not occurring again next to another customer or any type of thing. And also they should see how, who has done it, that disciplinary action has to be taken in place and segregate it, etc. Coming to the cyber insurance programs, etc., there are a lot of cyber insurance programs are available recently. But the problem with the cyber insurance is for the mostly it is for the data loss, and also for keying in the data, and also any type of the theft of intellectual property, or any type of they have to put any type of investigating agencies and then recovering it, and then recreating the entire thing and putting it. And also any type of financial assistance, legal and financial damages that occur are covered under this. But what is surprising is many of the big companies have not taken this seriously, because they are not aware what is the value of the data theft that can happen. Unless you know what is the value of the data you are having, then only you can insure it accordingly. And also, what are the possible reasons for any type of somebody can enter into this and take away this? What is the value lost, and what is the time to recoup this? And what type of business opportunity lost? All these things also have to be looked at by the insurance companies. We have to tell the insurance company, this is the value I wanted to take, and these are the clauses I want you to include, and this is the type of value I wanted to give, and then this is the type of remedial action that has to be, borne by them, or by a third party, or first party, as whatever it is. That is not done by many of them.
Taking that point, how to evaluate the information. But the primary question comes actually where this pilferage is happening. I have one question for Chaudhary ji. What do you think? Mobile is more dangerous, or computer is more dangerous, laptop? Which device is causing the biggest cyber risk for a common citizen? Let us speak about a common citizen.
Bharati, today common citizens are using all the sophisticated phones. These phones are nothing but big computers in their hand. So they are sending emails, they're sending WhatsApp messages, they're having video chats, and all that a farmer is doing, and every common person also is using this kind of a smart computer in their hand. I think any digital system is today is anybody can attack these digital systems, because it has become so easy. Earlier times, olden times, people used to manually try to hack into the systems. Today, a lot of automatic programs people are writing, and they first find out what is his email, what is his WhatsApp number or mobile number. Then afterwards, what are the IP addresses, so they'll come to know. Then afterwards, they'll set up a program. Continuously, this program will be attacking those IP addresses and enter their systems, whether it's a mobile or laptop or whatever the digital systems are, the router at home. All these things are vulnerable for these attacks. And unfortunately, many people in India, the kind of hardware that we are importing, we are not even testing, okay, this hardware is coming, whether there's any malware in this, any sanitization is required, any testing within India, testing labs are there, whether it has been tested by XYZ companies. The left, right, center, we are importing electronic routers, all the computers, everything. I mean, we don't know where all they're ciphering all our data, where all they're leaving all our sensitive information to their respective agencies. So nothing has been done. I mean, we are
Don't
simply...
you think that is the government's responsibility to create a kind of inspection agency where they cross-verify all this hardware that is coming into Indian market, which we are importing, especially like if you see, US has banned a few companies from various countries. I don't want to take their names. That's the reason I am not going to names. So they have verified and blocked them from the supply to their countries, and a few of them have been restricted with reference to services also. Don't you think even the same kind of responsibility has to be taken by Indian government or in state governments to put a filter where this can stand good product in this market, and this product cannot be allowed because this is a security threat or data or defense threat for the country?
Absolutely, absolutely, that is required. And without that, all innocent people, they simply suppose if I import a router, we don't know what malware is hidden in that. One day it will start waking up and start taking away, taking control of my laptop, control of my mobile phone, whatever I talk, whatever sensitive data is there, all that is absolutely required. That's the reason why our cyber preparedness in this country is very, very less. I totally agree with Mr. Vasan, and it's a tip of the iceberg only what we're doing. And we are actually leaving the common man. And I see if you allow it the same fashion, there'll be more suicide deaths of farmer, not because they lost the crop or they this thing, because somebody hacked their whatever Jan Dhan account, this thing, whatever saved money, somebody has taken away that this thing. So if we don't take the proper measures, I think we see more and more such things to happen. Not only farmers, even urban, lot of urbanites also, they are totally ill prepared. Recently, I was talking to one CEO of a $1 billion pharma company, and I was explaining to him why pharma companies are not following any cybersecurity. No, we don't use computers that much like in your IT company and all that. Everything is manual. Then I told you are using a lot of IoTs for your various controls of temperatures and all that. Yes, we use IoT. So if somebody hacks that IoT and changes the temperature instead of X temperature, it can become Y. Your complete formulations and product and all this produce, whatever you are producing, it will go for a task. Oh, is it so? So that means the awareness is not there. Many at the CEO level of a $1 billion company, that kind of awareness is there. Then you think about a common man, how it's going to be.
Exactly, that was my first question to Vasanji. If the IT companies, they themselves are facing this kind of cyber risk, and now we are speaking about a non-IT company handling this issue. And I have another way of looking at it. So the world is seeing war in a different mode. Earlier, it used to be like a direct face-to-face fight or military or ammunition and all those things. Now, typically, it is moving to bio-war. And post-COVID, we can expect a digital war, kind of cyber security war kind of threats. Now, in this kind of scenario, Vasanji, how equipped our security systems are, and how competitive our police departments, and are they trained in this area? How does the investigation go on? How do you judge, and what are the patterns we have? How are we going to really catch the culprit? A lot of doctoration is going with evidences also, and normal proceedings itself with the proper evidence, it will take years for solving a case. Now, with this digital environment where doctoring is possible for each and every evidence, how much time it will take, when will the judgment come? So all this process, do you think a common man of India is ready to take this challenge?
Now, I'll tackle your question in two parts. Number one, the prevention. Now, the government has to come in a big way and educate. Some banks are doing, even Reserve Bank of India is doing some kind of publicity. They are advising you. They have put some posters. They have put something, in vernacular language also. But still, it is not enough. A man who is using a bank mobile application and transferring money or using Paytm or any other kind of payment gateway, they have to be educated that what they should do and what they should not do. That is not being done. It has to be done in a very, very, massive manner by the government and by these institutions. That is one aspect. And second, as Mr. Chaudhary said, that we have to put in place some kind of audit mechanism when we import equipments. When we import mobile phones, or we import laptops, or we import routers, or whatever is used in the cyberspace, there has to be a proper audit of the equipment before we import and use them within the country. Because there are many equipments which are used in very, very sensitive operations, like financial markets, like our scientific research. There is a lot of property, intellectual property, which is being stolen without the knowledge of the companies. And by the time they come to know that somebody has stolen their intellectual property, it's too late. They are not able to take any action. That is one. So coming to the second part of the question is, how prepared we are, whether it is law enforcement agencies or judiciary or prosecutors. I am sorry to say we have still to go a long way. We have made some efforts, we have made some sincere efforts, but still our police officers are not trained, they are not educated enough to handle this kind of investigation of this kind of collection of evidence and then investigation of this kind of crime. It is limited to very few police officers. Yes, as Mr. Modi, I think he said earlier that we have now brought down that investigation can be done by inspector. Earlier it was the DSP. Now, it's the other way around. Actually, the sub-inspectors who are being recruited now, they are much more aware because they are the present generation. The DSPs and the inspectors are the older generation. They find it extremely to pick up knowledge. So we have to spend a lot of effort in training our police officers, both in terms of skill, how to collect evidence, how to preserve evidence, and subsequently how to investigate. And then another thing which we have to bring in place is what is known as team investigation. Now, these kind of investigation are no longer babies of police officers. They have to be done by a team which consists of an investigator and it consists of an expert. Because the IT or technology is changing by second, not by millisecond, it is changing by second. So even if I, as a police officer, am trained, I may be outdated in another 1 year, totally outdated. So new technology has come, so it has to be a team effort. Apart from police officers, the prosecutors who present the case in the court, they have to be educated, they have to be trained, they know. Then the judiciary. And I can say in Karnataka, we had a very funny, when I was in service, we had a very difficult task. We had a very, very important case which was being prosecuted. And we were not able to educate the judge that what is an IP address. We called expert, we called a professor from IT to convince him, but he was not able to appreciate what an IP address is. And it was a very, very tedious job for us. So most of the judicial officers are also lack the knowledge. So they have to be trained. they have to be given refresher training from time to time. Then only we can see that cases will be investigated, evidence will be collected, and maybe the culprits are punished. Apart from the other thing which I said in the beginning, we need a very, very high level of international cooperation, because the evidence often residing in other countries is not within the national boundaries of India. So we have to depend for evidence on other countries. So there has to be some kind of mechanism by which we can get evidence quickly and in brutal manner, because sometimes some evidence is given by the other countries and most of the crucial evidence is not passed on either on grounds of their domestic laws or on grounds of privacy of individuals. These are challenges which we are facing. We must address this.
Venkatesh Murthy, now this will create a question for you. Now you have been training on a lot of IPS officers and police officers on investigation and cyber security areas. Now this sector is a highly dynamic sector, and every day, every hour, let us say, new virus is coming, new threat is coming, new malware, phishing is happening. Now, how do you prepare your curriculum for training these people, and how do you handle these kinds of threats, and how do you empower the police departments and investigation agencies with the latest problems and available solutions?
Yeah, basically what we follow here is the knowledge management. Our team, they are part of many forums, and they try to track what is happening at a national level and at a global level. And they try to get maximum information about the new modus operandi. Because when it comes to cybercrime investigation for the police officers, our focus is more on those offenses or on those malicious activities which fall under the category of crimes in India. Okay. So we try to get maximum information about the latest trends. And our course curriculum, even though we have a 5-day full-fledged cybercrime course, we do at 3 levels: level 1, level 2, and level 3. It's not static. It's always dynamic. It depends on the profile of the participants also. Whenever we get very tech-savvy police officers group in the training, we try to introduce some advanced topics. We even go to some darknet and other advanced topics also. But as Vasan sir mentioned, when it comes to capacity building of law enforcement agencies, we still have we need to introduce a lot of new trainings and all. So the training programs are not static. We try to be very dynamic. And apart from the regular training programs, what we try to do, whenever any incident takes place, say for example, the Maze ransomware, which was in news last month, we try to create a document and we try to circulate it within the law enforcement community so that they are aware about the latest threat. And also what we try to do is we have formed some email and other social media channel groups we have formed, and there we try to disseminate a lot of information related to new modus operandis of cyber crimes. That's how we try to manage the advanced topics.
Yeah,
Chaudhary
Maruti, I want to just add what Venkatesh said. I think this skilling and training is very, very important. Even Mr. Vasan also emphasized on that. Unfortunately, in India, except a few organizations like what Venkatesh is doing, it's a minuscule of skilling and training. But for the kind of a scale of people, because every district, every police station, the law and order officials are required. As Vasan was mentioning, all the senior people, DSP level people, I don't think they can even follow some of this. What is IP address? What is this thing? So very difficult for them. I think government of all the other state governments and central government also should come with a separate force, separate cyber security force who are fully trained, who can handle this thing, who can be deployed at every mandal headquarters, this thing, so that they can handle these cases and interface with agencies what Venkatesh is heading to find out, so that justice can be done. Otherwise, I mean, this goes on. I mean, nobody knows what to do, how to do, and all that this thing. And in this direction, we in Tamil Nadu, in Bharatiya University, we are starting a 2-year MSc cybersecurity program for the students of that university. But that is not sufficient. At every university, every college, this thing we need to create, whether it's a mechanical engineer or a civil engineer or pharmaceutical. This thing, everybody should know what is cyber threats and what should know, what are the data thefts, what is the IT Act. All these things should be known to all the students across all the disciplines, and that kind of a massive skill development and training program is required in this country. And as everybody said, awareness and skilling, these two are fundamental things before we get the sanitization, get all the other processes which can be done easily. But this skilling and awareness is absolutely required, and nothing is being done in this area.
So you are demanding a digital sanitization.
Absolutely.
Okay. I mean, I have one doubt here. Now, the country is moving from a normal currency to digitized currency. Now, the third part is we are also seeing cryptocurrency. Ramurthy ji, can you just give us an idea how ready we are to handle these upgradations quickly?
I think I think we are taking as it is. No, we are not able to know. I think cryptocurrency is a big jump in handling, because right now, and so we are not in a position to understand if about our cyber security issues. One is added to the I mean, what I'm telling, no, this is one with VoIP coming in, and the OTT coming in, Viber coming in, and also devices getting changed, the malware, everything is changed. And if you add that also, I think the complexity will become, we will not be in a position, we are too early to do this. Rather, it is too, I think Mr. Vasan has done this cryptocurrency part of it. I think we should be a little slow. We have not done justice to the existing situation itself. The current rate of the number of people who from corporate, number of cases that are filed in IT, I mean cyber crimes are only just 3%. I'm logging to the police. You know what is the rate at which conviction happens. And also there are a very, very big dichotomy between the technologies, I mean, the people who are doing penetration testing, all this type of technology testing, the people who are law enforcement agencies who are getting into the investigation. The third part of it is how, under what law or what way the people will file it in the court and get them convicted. All these things, if you see, the 3% if you take in this, plus so much of uncertainty, plus so much of with the cloud coming in, the jurisdiction also changes. Many of the servers are outside, and also the data retentivity is also changing from one country, because most of the servers are outside India, and most of them are, if you take European law, they don't retain the data more than 6 months. If you take Germany, it's only 10 weeks they hold the data. So this, plus also Mr. Vasan was saying that you are having the territories, unless you have treaties. We are not in IT treaties. We are not in a position to even proceed further. And these type of cryptocurrencies and all come, it is not going to be in the jurisdiction of India. I think we are just logarithmically, we are multiplying our risk element, and we are doing one blind man leading the other blind man.
Okay, thank you. And I think we are reaching our time. I'll just ask one quick question, and I request all your opinions on this, and all your advices to our attendees and all the people and audience who are seeing this program. How shall we take care? And meanwhile, attendees, whatever questions you have, you can post in the questions portfolio, so that we will answer them at the end of the session. My quick question here is, the big risk right now everyone is offering is work from home. So work from home, how safe it is, and what are the measures? How safe it is from client side as well as employee side and employer side. So the three stakeholders are here, and what are the measures to be taken by the employee and employer, and what kind of rules should come from the client. So can we have a quick note from everyone on this? Let us start with Vasanji.
You see, this work from home is again a challenge. Now, number one, the basic thing is our mindset has to change. People who are working from home, they must be trained, they must be advised, and they should be aware enough that when they use any computer device on which they are connected to their office or to their client, so they have to observe minimum security threshold, and the companies who are making them work have also to ensure that there is a technological, a lot of programs are available. Provide them with VPN connection or some other kind of secure tunnel in which the data will travel. And then another thing is they have to also ensure that the devices which they use are not used by their wives, their children, because generally what happens in a Indian environment, if I have a laptop, it will be also used by my wife, it will also be used by my daughter. So there will be a single password, everybody knows others' password. So there has to be some kind of security policies brought in place. And the earlier we bring in, because now one thing is sure, that work from home is going to lose. It is not going to end. It may be 33%, it may be 50%, maybe 20%, but it is going to be a long-lasting phenomena in the coming days. And companies are not going to get back to 100% people working from their official, offices.
Yeah, can I have your advice, Chaudhary ji, on work from home?
Yeah, the corporates have actually figured out how to take care of the security issues for their employees who are working from home, including even some of the companies who are in the KPO or BPO business, where they handle this very sensitive information. They figured out how to safeguard the secure information of their customers and things like that. But as Mr. Vasan was telling, most of these employees who are not used to working from home, they don't have proper ethics. Like he said, I mean, everybody can use their laptops and mobile phones. I think these things, I mean, now we have to have some, maybe corporates may be insisting that, okay, these devices only you have authorized to use. If somebody else is using, immediately they can track and they will take action. So like that, I mean, they should have a proper procedures. What are the do's and don'ts if you are working from home, including what kind of hardware you are supposed to use for the company purposes, what kind of tools you have to use, what kind of websites this thing using the device. You can't go to XYZ, this thing. So I think corporates are figuring out, and most of the companies whom I interact, they say that productivity has increased and they don't have any security or data theft issues. And even post-COVID also, they want to continue working from home. Majority of them are telling 50 to 60% of their employees may work from home because they are seeing higher productivity, because they are not wasting their time traveling in the traffic, this thing and all that. So most of the companies are figuring out this is a much better productivity, and they are able to solve the security issues.
Yeah. Can I have your judgment, Ramurthy ji?
Sir, I think it is a very sweeping thing that we have improved the productivity and we have done. Success cannot be so easy. If success is so easy, there is something wrong. My feeling is it has been done at a great speed without much of a planning and much of a thought. The hardware has to be given in the name of the employee, and also they have to think of some virtual VPN connectivity or anything, because certainly the company is going to get some amount of, certainly the lot of overheads will be there. There is nothing wrong in connecting, in putting some investments in the employee's house for a separate hardware and also separate configuration, software, and also any type of this, the attack against any type of malware, all this type of thing. Also, there should be hardware lock, some such type of standardization of hardware and standardization of software has to be there. And also the layered security should be there. What type of access is given to whom, and this requires to be monitored. There should be a surveillance of who is accessing what, and also this should be under check what time is logging in and what time is logging out, and also on whose name he, I mean, no, this is one part. The second part of it also, he should be even the passwords, no, many times people are using very easily accessible passwords. So that type of thing should be avoided, and they should also be given some amount, some password direction, some, these are the, I mean, you should given something which is not common, so that any type of hacker cannot get in. And also he should be thought of, he should not have from the normal public IP address. He should have his own Wi-Fi or any type of I mean VPN. These type of things will certainly be a lot more thing. And from time to time, the cyber policy has to be put. There are a lot of people who are given the access audit also have to be done. How many people who have been given and what is that they have done, or who has to be upgraded or downgraded, etc., has to also be thought through. Third and foremost is the password also have to be changed by default from time to time. That these type of disciplines, if it is put to a great extent, we can do. And my feeling is that many times we are thinking that we are improving the productivity. That is one part of it, but also it has got other part of it. You are not seen by the customer. You are not having face-to-face interaction with the customer. That will result, probably this order will go through, but the next order or next upgradability, he will always say, where is this? I have not even seen anybody from this company. So that type of thing also will be there. So there will be a trade-off between what you are holding this current order and but what you should get. Further orders also should be kept in mind. So it has to be done little carefully, little more planning, and lot of customer interactions cannot go away with at any cost. Face-to-face is must, especially during the working hours.
Yeah, Venkatesh Murthy ji.
Yeah.
So what do you have to say on this?
Yeah, so if you recollect the situation in which the work from home was adopted by the companies at a very large scale, I think it was the lockdown period. Companies struggled very hard to get those passes because for them, the initial providing the required IT infrastructure, that was their first priority, because many employees, they didn't add those IT gadgets like a laptop or the internet, the Wi-Fi, the printer, all those things. So the companies focused more on providing the basic IT infrastructure first. And then my suggestion would be, we need to focus on the endpoint security, apart from, because the company would be having a IT security team, the IT administrator would be there who is very well aware about the IT security issue. But what about the endpoint security, which is lying with the employees' residence? So we need to focus on the endpoint security, where the antivirus should be up to date with remote access policy configuration. Because what we lack is, we provide the infrastructure, but we fail to set up the rules when it comes to accessing. Okay, so auto update of the virus definition, the client machine should be properly patched before connecting to the organization network, and also the virtual desktops. Virtual desktops should be used more and more. And what about the live support? Because whenever the employee who is not so tech savvy, if he faces any issue, if he receives a mail from the CEO of the organization stating that please download this attachment and fill the details. When he tries to double click it, it is asking macros disabled. Please enable it. So you should have that live support. If it was office, if it was 8-to-8 kind of environment, you can easily get access to the IT security guy or the IT administrator, whether this mail, should I open it or not. But in this work from home situation, whether that live support, which was earlier available, whether it is now available, it is strongly recommended that every organization, whoever is allowing their employees to work from home, they should establish a 24/7 live IT support to handle all queries related to security by the employees. And also, what about the live monitoring of all the events? All those things need to be taken care of. And also basic hygiene, basic cybersecurity hygiene. So awareness is one thing. some sort of communication has to go from the IT administrator, whoever is managing the IT assets of the company. We should provide some updates like any new kind of modus operandi, which would tend to trick the user to click on a malicious link. So those things, those awareness, all those things. So basically, one is providing the adequate IT infrastructure, a comfortable environment for the employee. The second one is how do we make it secure? That is second thing. And thirdly, the support, and finally the awareness. So these are some of the issues which the companies need to take care.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have a few questions from the attendees. The first one to Vasanji from Mr. Shankar Joshi. The attackers are more experienced and trained and PhD level knowledge people on cyber risk. Are we capable enough of handling them?
No, this is true of any criminal. You know, the crime, the criminals have been ahead. The police has to catch with them. More true of offenses in cyberspace. Yes, there is a need that we keep updating ourselves. And one suggestion which I have been making, that there has to be greater, private-public partnership. The police cannot on its own acquire those skills, so there have to be partnership with private players, big IT companies like Microsoft, Infosys, Wipro, and all those people have to, strengthen the law enforcement machinery by training them, by collaborating, by doing a common research, and that is the only way we can keep us ahead of the.
Yeah.
It's a good, very good, very good suggestion,
Yeah.
Maruti. What Vasan said is a very excellent suggestion.
Yeah.
By outsourcing some of those operations of law and order, cybersecurity operations to some identified companies, I think that's one way of solving this problem, because I totally agree with Vasanji. Our law and order officials are definitely, I don't think they can catch up with the super intelligent cyber criminals. So to tackle that, I think outsourcing to some good companies who are known international well in cybersecurity area, and giving them how to deal with the cyber cases in the mandal level or district level, I think that's definitely way forward. I really like very innovative solution.
As a blockchain committee chairman, you have one question from Priscilla Jayanti. How about blockchain concepts? But most of them do not know about the protection of a database in any of the organizations. Do we have prepared any framework or concepts?
Yeah, blockchain standards are getting evolved. The technology itself in blockchain is compared to how the blockchain was about 4 or 5 years back and what it is today. It's a really evolved technology. Definitely within 1 year, the standards for India Blockchain Standards Committee will working on it, and those standards will be released within 8 to 12 months. Once those standards are released, probably they can start applying those standards for various applications wherever the blockchain technology is going to be useful, whether it is document smart documents or land registration related or education certificates, all those things. I mean, wherever they think that somebody can steal the data and damage the information, all that, this probably they can start using the blockchain technology in those areas. So definitely, it's one technology which can at least solve to some extent some of the cyber related issues.
Thank you. Ramurthy ji, we have one question for you from Mr. Prakash Shalwar, USA. Is there any kind of audit certification for any of the companies with reference to cyber risk, whether it will increase the reputation of the organization or kind of client reliability?
I think so. It's a very important point he observed. Say many times, no, we are this type of this is there in the security. I'm talking security means visual security or any type of the perimeter security. The same way, like how we are doing, because wherever public footfalls are there, they are doing their areas, and then they've gone to insurance risk is there reduced because they have been they have taken a lot of investments in technology. Same way we have to do it also. I think it is required, because I'm surprised only 18% of the companies, Indian corporates, are now today, they are taking care of everything. And whatever the money has been spent, it is spent less on some of them, like what is tomorrow's technology, they are not getting into it, they are not invested at all. As it is, the amount of money is less in that. If you see what, and also simulated attacks, these type of things are most important for any type of thing. These are all not done. I think if auditing has been done, or star rating has been given, or any independent, like CRISIL does it, I think some amount of such type of security auditing has been done. It gives a lot of faith on all the stakeholders, whether it is the investors, or whether it is the customers, and also the employees, and also in general, no, people have to work in a regimentalized way, rather than going. No, they can't be hip shooters.
So that's it. Thank you, Ramurthy ji and other panelists. Thank you, Vasanji, for joining us and giving your valuable guidance. Thank you, Chaudhary ji, for your valuable guidance and information on cybersecurity. Venkatesh Murthy ji, it's a great honor having you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all the panel. So that's it for the day, all team and attendees. We have had a wonderful and knowledgeable session. So next week we are coming with a new topic in this area of scalp. And thank you. Good night, everyone. Thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sculpt team. Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.